Some guys enjoy long walks or jogging or cycling, but for most guys who are interested in strength training, they do it because they want to look and feel more powerful, not to waste half of their workout session doing some boring cardio. At the same time, cardiovascular exercise can help, in conjunction with a proper diet, to bring out that definition, to reveal the muscles that you have built during your strength training sessions. As we get older, heart health and brain health also become more of a concern, and so some guys will begrudgingly tack in a little bit of cardio at the end of their workout. But what if I told you that there was a faster, more effective way to not only help you to burn body fat, but to improve your cardiovascular health and do it in a way that doesn't sacrifice lean muscle or strength? The best part is, it only takes you 10 to 20 minutes per day. In today's video, I'm going to break down how power training helps men over 40 to improve their heart health, burn fat fast, build explosive athleticism, all while without sacrificing the muscle that you've worked so hard in the gym to build. My name is Aaron Kubitz. I'm the founder of Functional Aesthetics of Eau Claire. For over 20 years, I've helped busy men stay strong, lean, and athletic in less than an hour per day. So if you've ever had those days where your energy is low, you're crashing by the mid-afternoon, maybe you have a little bit of brain fog, or maybe you go to the doctor and he tells you that your cholesterol is high, you have high blood pressure, and maybe some inflammation, whatever that means. Well, in your 20s and 30s, most of the focus of our fitness training is on building more muscle, getting stronger, maybe even getting that six-pack, or focusing on competitive aspects of fitness like sports and various different forms of athletic training. As we get older, though, not to say that 40 is extremely old, but we're getting to that point where, some of us are starting to feel our age. Maybe we have some injuries that we built up over the years. Maybe we just don't have as much energy and drive as we used to have. And we start to care a little bit more about keeping our brain sharp, keeping our heart healthy so that we can actually enjoy our later years after we get done with all the grinding of raising a family, building your career, and preparing for those golden years when you're actually going to be able to enjoy your time more. Staying strong, sharp, mentally sharp, and athletic through the decades of your 40s, 50s, and even beyond that isn't just about having bigger muscles, being able to lift more weight, or even about how clean or healthy your diet is. One thing that often gets overlooked is the health of your cardiovascular system. Your cardiovascular system is that transport system that delivers oxygen throughout the body. It brings nutrients to the muscles in your body so they can perform better. It brings oxygen and nutrients to your brain. If your cardiovascular system isn't healthy, the rest of your system isn't healthy. And one thing that many guys overlook is that it's not just about cardiovascular exercise. And contrary to what was previously believed, strength training or lifting heavy weights, lifting explosively, doesn't make your arteries or your blood vessels stiffer. In fact, it does the exact opposite. Power training, so explosive lifting, sprinting, jumping, kicking, and punching, has the capacity to decrease your blood pressure, improve your athletic performance, burn body fat, help you recover faster, and live a longer, healthier life. Now, some of you guys have probably seen strongmen and powerlifters lifting really big weights and seeing the veins in the side of their neck bulging out when they're doing this, thinking, well, see, there you have it. You're increasing blood pressure. That's going to be hard on your heart. That's going to be hard on your cardiovascular system. But the reality is that, yes, temporarily, you are increasing your blood pressure when you lift heavy weights. This is due to both a combination of when you're holding your breath when you're on the concentric portion of the lift, called the Valsalva maneuver, give you more leverage, give you more strength to push through the lift, and also from the forceful contractions of the muscles on the blood vessels that are within those muscles. So this temporarily restricts blood flow, and when you have a smaller area, right, it's the relationship between volume and pressure, right? So when there's less volume or a smaller space for something to go through, the pressure tends to go up, right? So you have this temporary increase in pressure, but this temporary increase in pressure signals to your body to produce more nitric oxide. Well, what is nitric oxide good for? Nitric oxide, if you've seen, how beetroot powder and stuff for the past few years has been really popular in more mainstream media, talking about helping you to increase vasodilation, so helping your blood vessels to relax, helping to dilate, so you improve blood flow, right? Well, you can get a similar effect when you're doing strength training, when you're doing power training, when you're doing sprints and jumps, when you're lifting heavy weights. It helps to downstream, in the short term, you're increasing the blood pressure, but in the downstream, it actually helps your body produce more nitric oxide, so in your day-to-day life, you actually have lower blood pressure. Now, a lot of guys have heard that in response to regular aerobic exercise, so jogging, cycling, walking, things like that, that you increase capillary density. Your body produces or makes more of the little tiny blood vessels that perfuse all throughout your muscles, right? Like if you look at a fish, you can see these tiny little veins of stuff going throughout the muscles, right? Similar thing in your own body. Now these little capillaries are smaller than the veins, they're kind of offshoots of that, but what this does is it helps to not only remove metabolic waste products from the exercise you're doing, but also bring oxygen and nutrients to those working muscles faster, thus improving not only your recovery, but also your performance in the moment. Well, the same thing happens when you're doing power training, when you're doing sprinting, jumping, or you're just doing a heavy deadlift. Same thing will happen when you're doing these activities in a slightly different way. When you are doing these forceful contractions, just like before where I was talking about the release of nitric oxide, when you are on a regular basis restricting your oxygen supply to the muscles through the forceful contractions, this tells your body, hey, if our main highways, like let's say for example, let's have the analogy of a highway, right? If you have only one highway, you have a certain amount of cars that can go through there per hour, right? To increase that maximum amount of traffic that you can get through there, well, you need to build another lane and another lane and another lane, right? Increase the lanes of the highway. So in the same way, when you're increasing the number of capillaries that you have, the number of blood vessels that you have, this means you can, even if the blood flow is restricted a little bit, that the net amount of oxygen and nutrients getting delivered and the waste products being removed will remain about the same or even increase. And then when you're not suppressing that or restricting that blood flow, it's definitely going to be increased above that. The last thing we're going to look at here is inflammation. So one of the things that causes inflammation is stress. Now, actually, one of the primary causes of inflammation is stress. And there are many different ways that you can stress the body, right? You can get inflammation or swelling around a joint when you sprain your ankle, right? There's a trauma, right? So that acute stress can create the response from the body to produce inflammation, right? In the short term, when you are lifting weights, when you're lifting with your muscles, you're creating low-grade inflammation that signals to the satellite cells in the muscles to produce more help produce more muscle protein, right? So it's good in a short-term context. But the other form that you can stress your body is too little activity and also having too much and coupled with eating too much food, right? So when you eat more food than your body can process, it gets stored in your the carbohydrates get stored in the muscles in the liver. This is not a bad thing. This is actually replenishing the tank for future stuff. So if you're using those calories up, you're using that storage on a regular basis, then it's not a problem, right? It's doing what it's supposed to do. But if these stores are full, and then the only other place to go with the excess calories is to put them in your fat stores. But over time, these fat stores start to build up, and you start having decreased sensitivity to things like insulin, right? Which help to bring the fat and the carbohydrates not only into your muscle cells, but also into your fat cells, right? And so over time, though, when it starts requiring more and more and more insulin and these things to do this, because you're starting to get desensitized when you have a surplus all the time. And so after a while, more and more of that excess carbs and fat stay in your bloodstream and start circulating around, right? And when the carbs and the fat stay in your bloodstream chronically and remain chronically elevated, not just after a meal or something, it produces more inflammation. And the inflammation decreases the tone, your vascular tone, the tone of your blood vessels, right? Which is the opposite of what the nitric oxide was doing earlier in the video, where we're talking about relaxing those blood vessels, right? So when you're producing all this inflammation in your blood vessels from having too much food on a regular basis, right? Then you're increasing the inflammation, which decreases the elasticity of your blood vessels, which increases your likelihood of having heart attack and stroke. And this is why poor metabolic health, when you're insulin resistant, leptin resistant, other things like that, having high blood lipids, also is highly linked to having poor cardiovascular health. So all these are linked. So how can power training help with this? Well, lifting heavy weights with power lifting can help you to build dense, strong muscles. Bodybuilding helps to build bigger muscles, but neither of those come close to the metabolic benefits that power training or fast and explosive training can do. Fast and explosive training rapidly helps deplete muscle glycogen stores and also is extremely effective at burning visceral fat, or the fat that gets stored around your organs. In fact, if you're trying to get really ripped by having very low levels of body fat over your muscles, the subcutaneous fat, right? The fat just underneath the layer of your skin. If you're trying to get extremely ripped like that, most of that is going to be, the results of that is a result of depletion through restricting caloric intake, right? But visceral fat is a little bit different. Visceral fat can actually, without adjusting your diet too much, just training super intensely, can be brought down by that vigorous power training sort of exercise. The sprinting, the jumping, doing kettlebell circuits, doing barbell complexes. We have low rest. You have fast and explosive. If you are worried about your joints for doing like the explosive stuff in the beginning, you do HIIT training on a stationary bike, right? Hop on a stationary bike, and you just go warm up for a few minutes, and then you go as hard as you can for like 30 seconds or so, and then ride for a minute or two, and then go as hard as you can for 30 seconds, right? And just back and forth like that. Do a couple cycles of that. The whole thing take you about 10 minutes, including those rest periods. Generally, you want to have about a 2-to-1 ratio between the amount of rest you are doing and the amount of time you're actually working. So you should be resting about twice as much as the time that you're actually working. Alright guys, so in closing, power training isn't just for athletes. It's not just for helping you to jump higher, run faster, and hit harder. It's one of the best things that you can do to improve the health of your heart, your brain, and even to help you get stronger and more muscular in the process. The best part, it doesn't take a lot of time to do it. Now, the one caveat to all this is we don't want to be doing this every single day because it is very intense and it is hard on not only your musculoskeletal system, the joints and tendons and ligaments, but it is also hard on the nervous system as well. So, doing this 2 to 3 times a week. In fact, if you're doing some other forms of aerobic exercise, I actually advocate for starting out just doing this once a week, and then maybe building up to doing it twice a week would probably be plenty. If you are somebody who wants to get into competitive sprinting, or you play sports like basketball where you want more explosiveness, more jumping ability, you could train power up to like 3 times a week, but I wouldn't go much higher than that. So if you want to remain sharp mentally, strong physically, and capable overall, don't overlook power training. Next week, in next week's video, I'm going to be talking about a little bit more about the metabolic benefits of power training. We're going to dig deeper into that. So I touched briefly on that, talking about the inflammation aspect of things, but we're going to dig a lot deeper into that in next week's video, showing you how power training can help you to build muscle more efficiently and shed fat faster. In the meantime, if you train for power, what kind of power training do you like to do? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you all next time for more health and fitness information.